The words still echoed in my mind as I sat across from my family at Sunday dinner, the same table where I'd endured variations of this conversation for the past 6 years. My sister Rachel, 35 and newly promoted to VP of Business Development at Harrison Pharmaceuticals, was in full form tonight. "I'm just saying, Diana, you could do so much more with your life." Rachel cut into her steak with the kind of precision that suggested she was cutting into something else entirely. "You have a master's degree from Georgetown. And you're working as an office assistant." "Administrative coordinator," I corrected quietly, though I knew it wouldn't matter. "Same thing," my younger brother Marcus interjected. He was 29, 3 years younger than me, and worked as a corporate attorney. Entry-level clerical work. "No offense, Dee, but it's not exactly what we expected from you." I took a sip of water and said nothing. This was easier than explaining, and explaining had never worked anyway. "How much are they paying you for that?" Dad asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer wouldn't be satisfactory. He'd built his own consulting firm from the ground up and measured success primarily in billable hours and client retention rates. I named my official salary, modest but comfortable for my needs. The table went quiet in that particular way that meant everyone was calculating how far behind I was compared to their own earnings. "That's barely enough to live on in DC, Mom said, her voice heavy with concern. "Honey, are you managing okay? Do you need help with rent?" "I'm fine, Mom. I live within my means." "Within your means," Rachel repeated, and I could hear the quotation marks around the phrase. "Diana, you live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Columbia Heights. You take the metro to work. You're 32 years old and you're living like you're still in grad school. Some people find fulfillment in simpler lifestyles," Aunt Jennifer offered, though even she sounded doubtful. "Fulfillment doesn't pay for retirement," Dad countered. "Diana, your brother and sister are building wealth, establishing themselves in their industries. You're making copies and answering phones." "I do a bit more than that," I said. "Do you?" Marcus leaned forward. "Because from what you've told us, you work at some government agency doing administrative support. Which is fine, I guess, if you're 23 and just starting out. But you're not. You should be managing people by now, not fetching coffee for them." "I don't fetch coffee," I said. "But you make it," Rachel pressed. "You've said that. You said you sometimes make coffee in the office." "I do. When I want coffee, I make it." "See, this is what I mean," she said, looking around the table for support. "She's so beaten down by this dead-end job that she can't even see how she's being exploited. Diana, administrative assistants shouldn't be making coffee. That's not in your job description." "Actually, it's not in my job description to make coffee or not make it. I'm free to use the office kitchen like anyone else." "Which agency is it again?" Uncle Paul asked. "Maybe I know someone there. I could put in a word, see if there are any openings for something more senior level." "Federal Trade Commission," I said. "But I'm happy where I am." "The FTC," Dad mused. "That's a regulatory agency, right? They must have positions for policy analysts, legal counsel, economists. Surely with your background in public policy and economics, you could apply for something more substantial." "There are many positions," I agreed. "Then why aren't you applying for them?" Rachel demanded. "Why are you content being someone's assistant when you could be doing real work?" The question hung in the air. I'd learned over the years that my family had constructed a narrative about my life that made sense to them. The brilliant daughter who'd somehow lost her way, who'd settled for mediocrity, who needed rescuing from her own poor decisions. Trying to correct that narrative had proven impossible, so I'd stopped trying. "I'm satisfied with my current role," I said simply. "Satisfied," Marcus echoed. "That's the problem right there. You should want more than satisfaction. You should want success, advancement, recognition." "Maybe she's afraid of responsibility," Rachel suggested, not unkindly. "Some people get to a certain level and then plateau because they're scared of taking on more challenging work." "That's not it," Mom protested, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "Diana has always been capable. She just, I don't know. Something changed after grad school." What had changed after grad school was that I'd been recruited directly into the Senior Executive Service, a group of senior government leaders who operated just below presidential appointees. What had changed was that I'd spent 3 years as a policy advisor before being nominated, vetted, and confirmed as one of 5 commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission. What had changed was that I now held one of the most powerful regulatory positions in the federal government, with authority over antitrust enforcement, consumer protection, and competition policy. But explaining this to my family had proven impossible, so I'd stopped trying. "I think Diana just has different priorities," Aunt Jennifer said diplomatically. "Not everyone wants the corporate climb." "She's not even on the climb," Rachel said. "She's standing at the bottom watching other people climb, and somehow convincing herself that this is fine." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. "The worst part is the wasted potential," Dad said. "Georgetown doesn't accept just anyone. You were top of your class. You had opportunities at consulting firms, think tanks, policy organizations. And you chose administrative work at a government agency." "I chose public service," I said. "Public service is noble," Marcus allowed. "But you can serve the public from positions of actual influence. As an assistant, what are you really contributing?" The phone buzzed again. And again. "Someone's trying to reach you," Mom noted. I pulled out my phone and glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls from the FTC's general counsel, 2 from the chairman's chief of staff, and 1 from Senator Williams's office. All marked urgent. "Work?" Rachel asked, her tone making it clear what she thought about urgent work matters for an office assistant. "Probably someone needs you to schedule a meeting or order office supplies," Marcus joked. The glamorous life of a government administrator. I checked the messages quickly. The general counsel's text read, "Commissioner Chen, we have a situation with the Harrison Pharma merger review. Need your guidance immediately." My blood went cold. Harrison Pharmaceuticals. Rachel's company. The company whose proposed merger with MedTech Solutions had been under FTC review for the past 4 months. The company whose future depended on a decision that would be made by a 5-member commission of which I was one voting member. "Diana." Mom's voice broke through my thoughts. "Is everything all right?" "I need to make a call," I said, standing. "Excuse me." "Now." Rachel protested. "We're in the middle of dinner. Whatever it is can wait." "It really can't," I said, already moving toward the other room. "This is exactly what I mean," I heard her say as I walked away. "She lets them walk all over her. It's Sunday dinner and they're calling her about office work? She needs to set boundaries." I closed the door to the study and called the general counsel back. "Michael," I said. "What's happening?" "Commissioner Chen, thank you for calling back. We have a problem with the Harrison MedTech merger. New evidence just came to light about potential anti-competitive practices. We need to schedule an emergency commission meeting to discuss whether to extend the review period or move to block the merger." I felt my stomach drop. What kind of evidence? Internal emails suggesting coordinated price-fixing agreements post-merger, potential market allocation schemes, and evidence of misleading information in the initial filing. It's serious, Diana. If half of what we're seeing is accurate, this merger could substantially lessen competition in 3 major pharmaceutical markets. Send me everything. How quickly can we convene? Tomorrow morning 8 a.m. if all commissioners are available. But Commissioner Chen, there's something else. Harrison Pharmaceuticals has retained Senator Williams to advocate for the merger. His office has been calling all evening. Williams doesn't get a vote on merger decisions, I said firmly. And you know our policy on congressional outreach during active investigations. I do. But he's persistent. He's saying there are jobs at stake, innovation that will be lost if the merger doesn't go through. He's asking for a meeting with you specifically before tomorrow's commission meeting. Tell his office that all commissioners are bound by ex parte rules during active merger reviews. Any communication about the merger must go through formal channels and be placed on the public record. Michael? Make sure the full evidentiary record is ready for tomorrow. If we're going to make a decision of this magnitude, I want every commissioner to have complete access to all materials. Understood. I'll have everything prepared. And Michael? This stays confidential until the commission meeting. No leaks to press, no advance warning to the parties. Standard procedure. Of course, Commissioner. I ended the call and stood for a moment, staring at the bookshelf without really seeing it. Harrison Pharmaceuticals. Rachel's company. The company where she just made VP, where she was building her career, where her success and compensation were likely tied in part to this merger's success. This was exactly the nightmare scenario the ethics guidelines were designed to handle. I'd disclosed my sister's employment at Harrison when the merger review began 4 months ago. The agency's ethics council had determined that because Rachel wasn't directly involved in the merger work and I was one of 5 commissioners, not the sole decision-maker, I could participate in the review. But now, with potentially damning evidence and a vote that could block a merger worth billions, that calculation felt far more complicated. I needed to recuse myself. It was the only ethical path forward, even though it meant letting the other 4 commissioners decide without my input. Even though I'd spent weeks reviewing this case and had serious concerns about the market concentration issues. Even though my recusal might actually help the merger get approved if the remaining commissioners split 2-2. But first, I needed to get through dinner without revealing why I suddenly needed to leave. I returned to the dining room where dessert had been served in my absence. "Everything okay?" Mom asked. "There's an issue at work. I'm going to need to leave early." "On a Sunday?" Rachel shook her head. "Diana, this is what I mean about boundaries. You're letting them abuse your time." "It's urgent," I said simply. "What could possibly be urgent for an administrative assistant?" Marcus asked. "Did someone run out of sticky notes?" "It's a bit more complex than that." "Let me guess," Rachel said. "Someone up the chain needs something prepared for Monday morning, and they're dumping it on you at the last minute because they know you won't say no. You need to learn to push back." If only she knew that what someone up the chain needed was a decision about whether to block her company's flagship merger. If only she understood that the person making that decision would be me, and that my vote could destroy months of work she'd put into this deal. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "Before you go," Dad interjected, "I wanted to mention something. One of my clients is looking for a policy analyst. Real position, real salary, actual career growth potential. I could arrange an introduction." "That's very kind, but—" "Diana, please," Mom said. "Just take the meeting. What could it hurt?" "Your father's trying to help you," Rachel added. "The least you could do is be gracious about it." I looked at my family. These people who loved me, who worried about me, who had spent 6 years convinced I was wasting my life because I wouldn't explain the truth. The truth that I was one of the most powerful regulators in the federal government. The truth that I oversaw a budget of over $300 million and a staff of thousands. The truth that my decisions affected billion-dollar companies and shaped competition policy for the entire nation. But telling them now, with Rachel's merger on my desk, felt impossible. It would look like I was bragging to hurt her or trying to intimidate her, or worse, trying to influence how she and her company approached the merger review. "I appreciate the offer," I said to Dad. "But I'm genuinely happy in my current position. Doing administrative work," Marcus said flatly. "Supporting important work," I corrected. Rachel sighed dramatically. "You're impossible to help, Diana. We're all trying to support you and you're so defensive that you can't even see it." "I'm not defensive. I'm just content." "Content with mediocrity," she said. "That's not the sister I remember. The Diana I knew was ambitious, driven, wanted to make a real difference in the world. Now you're just settling." The irony was almost painful. He thought I was settling. Meanwhile, I held one of the most consequential regulatory positions in Washington, with the power to shape markets, protect consumers, and enforce antitrust law. I'd testified before Congress 14 times. I'd authored dissenting opinions that had shaped legal precedent. I'd blocked mergers worth tens of billions of dollars when I believed they would harm competition. But sitting there at my parents' dining room table with my sister pitying me and my brother mocking my clerical work, there was no way to explain any of that without it sounding like I was either lying or attacking Rachel on the eve of a crucial decision about her company. "I need to go," I said, standing. "Thank you for dinner, Mom." "You barely ate anything," she protested. "I'll grab something on the way home." "I'm sorry to leave early." As I gathered my things, I could hear them discussing me in lowered voices that weren't quite low enough. "She's in denial," Rachel said. "She can't admit that she made a mistake, so she's doubled down on pretending everything is fine." "Maybe she's depressed," Marcus suggested. "That would explain the lack of ambition." "We should stage an intervention," Dad said. "Help her see that she's worth more than this." I left without saying goodbye to anyone else. The drive back to my apartment in Columbia Heights gave me time to think through the ethical implications of tomorrow's meeting. By the time I got home, I'd made my decision. I drafted a formal recusal memo and sent it to the General Counsel and the FTC chairman. Given my sister's employment at Harrison Pharmaceuticals, and in light of the serious nature of the evidence now under review, I am recusing myself from all further proceedings related to the Harrison MedTech merger. This recusal is effective immediately and applies to all votes, deliberations, and informal discussions about the merger. The response came within minutes from the chairman. Understood and appreciated, Diana. Your ethical standards remain exemplary. We'll proceed with 4 commissioners tomorrow. Thank you for your continued service. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rachel's words, about my family's perception of my life, about the vast gulf between what they thought I did and what I actually did. Part of me wanted to call my sister, to warn her that her company was in serious trouble, that the merger she'd worked so hard to support was likely going to be blocked. But I couldn't. Commissioner or not, I still had access to confidential information, and using it to benefit my sister would be a violation of everything I'd sworn to uphold. The next morning, I wasn't at the commission meeting when my 4 colleagues voted 3-1 to extend the review period and demand additional information from Harrison Pharmaceuticals about the newly discovered evidence. The move sent the company's stock down 8% and threw the merger timeline into chaos. Rachel called me that afternoon, her voice tight with stress. Diana, did you hear? The FTC is putting our merger through hell. They're demanding all these additional documents, questioning everything, treating us like criminals. It's insane. This merger was supposed to close next month, and now we're looking at another 6 months of review minimum. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. My whole bonus was tied to this deal closing on time. My promotion, my entire career trajectory, it all depended on getting this done. And now some bureaucrats in Washington are playing power games with people's lives. I said nothing. There was nothing I could say. You work at the FTC, right? She asked suddenly. You're there in the building. What are people saying? Is there any way to fix this? Rachel, I'm an administrative coordinator. I don't have access to that kind of information. But you must hear things. You must overhear conversations, see documents. Diana, this is my career we're talking about. If you hear anything at all about what the FTC is thinking or what we need to do to get this deal approved, you have to tell me. I can't do that, I said quietly. Even if I did hear something, which I don't, it would be confidential government information. I can't share it. Oh my God, she said, and I could hear the frustration in her voice. You're worried about the rules for your little administrative job? Diana, this is serious. This is my life. I need you to help me here. I can't help you the way you're asking me to help. Because you won't break some minor confidentiality rule for your sister? Because following the rules is more important than family. Yes, I said. That's exactly why. She hung up on me. Over the next 3 weeks, as the FTC investigation deepened and more evidence emerged of Harrison's anti-competitive practices, Rachel's calls became more frequent and more desperate. The company's stock continued to fall. The merger looked increasingly unlikely to be approved. And my family's opinion of me somehow managed to sink even lower. She won't even try to help, Rachel told our mother, loudly enough for me to hear on a family call. She works there, she could at least ask questions, but she's so worried about her pathetic little job that she won't do anything. Maybe she doesn't have access to that information, Mom suggested weakly. Then what good is she? What's the point of having a sister who works at the FTC if she can't even help when it matters? 4 weeks after my recusal, the commission voted 4-0 to block the merger entirely. The evidence of anti-competitive conduct was overwhelming. 2 Harrison executives were referred to the Department of Justice for potential criminal prosecution. The company's stock lost 30% of its value in a single day. Rachel lost her VP title in the restructuring that followed. She called me crying, asking how this could have happened, how the government could destroy honest businesses, how I could just stand by and watch while her career imploded. I said I was sorry because I was sorry that her company had engaged in illegal practices. Sorry that her career had been built on a foundation of anti-competitive behavior. Sorry that she'd never understand why I couldn't and wouldn't compromise my oath of office, even for family. The family dinner that Sunday was predictably awful. I hope you're happy, Rachel said when I arrived. Your precious government rules cost me everything. The rules didn't cost you anything, I said quietly. Harrison's illegal behavior cost you everything. Oh, don't give me that sanctimonious crap. You worked there. You knew what was happening. You could have warned me, given me a heads up, something. But no. You had to protect your little administrative assistant job. Rachel. No, I'm done. I'm done making excuses for you, done pretending your life choices are anything other than pathetic. You're 32 years old, Diana. You're a nobody doing nothing, and apparently you're fine with that. Well, I'm not fine with it. I'm not fine with having a sister who's so mediocre that she won't even stick her neck out for family. I looked around the table. Dad was studying his plate. Mom looked like she might cry. Marcus was trying to become invisible. No one was defending me. No one was suggesting that maybe, just maybe, there were things they didn't understand about my work or my position. You're right, I said finally. I am fine with my choices. And I'm sorry you lost your job, Rachel. Truly. But I couldn't have prevented it, and I wouldn't have even if I could. Because you're selfish and self-righteous and completely useless. The words hung in the air. I could correct her. I could tell her the truth right now, explain that I hadn't just watched her company get investigated. I'd recused myself from the decision specifically to avoid any appearance of bias, sacrificing my ability to vote on a case I'd studied for months. I could tell her that far from being a useless administrative assistant, I held one of the 5 most powerful antitrust enforcement positions in the country. But what would that accomplish? She'd already lost her job. The merger was already blocked. Telling her now would only seem cruel, like rubbing salt in her wounds or proving that I'd had power over her fate all along. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said instead. Of course you are. That's all you ever say. I'm sorry. Never, let me help, or, let me do something, or, let me use my position to make a difference. Just, I'm sorry. I left before dessert. 3 months later, I was sitting in my office at the FTC. Not a desk in a shared administrative area, but a corner office with my name and title on the door. Commissioner Diana Chin, Federal Trade Commission, when my secretary buzzed me. Commissioner Chin, you have a visitor. She says she's your sister and it's urgent. I felt my stomach drop. Send her in. Rachel walked into my office and I watched her face as she took in the space. The large desk. The wall of framed photos showing me with various presidents, cabinet members and congressional leaders. The awards and commendations. The law books and economic text. The view of Pennsylvania Avenue. She stopped in the middle of the room, staring at a photo of me being sworn in as commissioner, my hand on a Bible, the Chief Justice administering the oath. What is this? She whispered. My office. Your office. She turned to look at me. Administrative coordinators don't have offices like this. No, I agreed. They don't. The door says Commissioner. Commissioner Diana Chin. Yes. You're. She couldn't finish the sentence. I'm one of 5 commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission. I was nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate 6 years ago. Before that, I was a senior policy advisor here. The administrative coordinator title. That's what I told you because it was easier than explaining the truth, and because you never asked for details. Rachel sank into one of the chairs facing my desk. Her face had gone pale. 6 years, she said. You've been a commissioner for 6 years. Yes. And you let us treat you like you were a failure. Like you were some kind of disappointment who couldn't get her life together. You needed to believe that. I don't know why, but you did. And fighting it seemed pointless. The merger, she said suddenly. Harrison. You were involved in that decision. I recused myself the moment I learned you worked there. I didn't participate in any votes or deliberations. But yes, I would have been involved otherwise. You recused yourself to protect me. I recused myself to maintain ethical standards and avoid any appearance of impropriety. It wasn't about protecting you. It was about doing my job correctly. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. All those times I told you to get ambition, to want more, to do important work. And you were literally shaping antitrust policy for the entire country. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? I considered the question. Would you have believed me? 6 years ago when you were just starting out and I'd just been confirmed, would you have taken it seriously? Or would you have found ways to diminish it, to make it smaller than it was, to still feel superior? She flinched but didn't deny it. And later, I continued, after it became clear what I do, What would telling you have accomplished? It would have looked like bragging, like trying to win some imaginary competition. I didn't need you to know I was successful, Rachel. I was too busy actually being successful. That's harsh. It's honest. You've spent 6 years being harsh to me. I'm just being honest with you. The echo of my words to my other sister from that Christmas dinner months ago wasn't lost on me. Apparently this was becoming a pattern. I don't know what to say, Rachel admitted. You don't have to say anything. Yes, I do. I was horrible to you. For years I was absolutely horrible. And you just took it. I took it because your opinion of me wasn't relevant to my work or my sense of self-worth. It hurt sometimes, yes. But not enough to matter in the grand scheme of things. She stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city. The family is going to lose their minds when they find out. Are you going to tell them? Shouldn't you? I shrugged. Maybe someday. When it feels relevant. For now, I'm content with things as they are. Content, she repeated. You're always content. Even when we're tearing you down, you're content. How? Because I know who I am and what I do. Your perception of that is your business, not mine. Rachel turned back to face me. I came here to apologize. Before I knew all this, I came to say I was sorry for how I treated you, for blaming you for the merger situation, for all of it. And now I feel like my apology is completely inadequate. It's adequate, I said. I accept it. Just like that. Just like that. Don't you want to yell at me? Tell me how wrong I was, how unfair I've been. Would it change anything? You were wrong. You were unfair. You know that now. What good would yelling about it do? She laughed again, and this time there was a hint of genuine amusement. Even now you're unnaturally calm. It's actually kind of infuriating. 6 years of letting you think I was a failure taught me patience. I deserved that. Yes, I agreed. You did. We stood there for a moment, the air between us settling into something new. Not quite forgiveness, not quite reconciliation, but a beginning of understanding. Can we start over? She asked finally. Maybe. But not by pretending the past didn't happen. I'm not interested in fake fresh starts. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be based on who we actually are, not who you wish I was or who you thought I was. That seems fair, she said. Harsh but fair. I'm told I can be harsh. Only when being honest, she countered. True. She moved toward the door, then paused. Diana, thank you for recusing yourself from the Harrison case. For not using your position against me when you probably wanted to. I didn't want to use it against you. I just wanted to do my job ethically. But you're welcome. After she left, I sat in my office and looked out at Pennsylvania Avenue, watching the endless flow of people pursuing their various ambitions and agendas. Somewhere out there was my family about to learn a truth they'd missed for 6 years. Somewhere out there were people making assumptions about strangers based on incomplete information, just like my family had done with me. I didn't feel vindicated exactly. More just tired. Tired of the performance, tired of the assumptions, tired of the gap between perception and reality. My phone buzzed with a reminder about the next commission meeting. We had 3 merger reviews to discuss, 2 consumer protection cases, and a policy briefing on emerging issues in digital markets. The work continued as it always did, regardless of family drama or personal revelations. And that, I supposed, was exactly how it should be. The text came through at 2 a.m. while I was on assignment in Seattle. Mom, finally did something about that house of yours. You're welcome. I stared at the message on my phone, lying in the darkness of my hotel room. The house. My house in Alexandria. The 3-bedroom colonial I'd bought 2 years ago. The property I'd carefully selected because it was 15 minutes from the federal courthouse and 20 minutes from my office at the U.S. Marshals Service headquarters. Me, what do you mean, did something about it? Mom sold it. You were never there anyway. Always traveling for that job of yours. The money will help your sister with her wedding. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped my phone. Me, you sold MY house. Mom, don't be dramatic. We have your power of attorney from when you were overseas. We used it. The house was just sitting empty. $850,000 cash. Your father and I split it with Rachel for her wedding expenses. You can thank us at the reunion next week. My hands were shaking. Power of attorney. From when I was deployed to Afghanistan 6 years ago before I joined the Marshals Service. A document I'd forgotten to revoke when I returned stateside. Me, Mom, you need to stop the sale immediately. Mom, it's done. Closed yesterday. Stop being selfish. Family helps family. I immediately called my supervisor, Deputy Chief Marshal James Crawford. He answered on the third ring, his voice rough with sleep. Mitchell, this is the middle of the night. Sir, we have a problem. My family just sold my house in Alexandria. There was a pause. Your house. The safe house. Yes, sir. Jesus Christ. The one we've been using for witness protection. Sir. For the Castellano case. Another pause, longer this time. How long ago? They closed yesterday. I just found out. Who's in the house now? According to the protection details last report, Angela Moretti and her 2 children. They're scheduled to be there for another 3 weeks before relocation. And your family sold a federal safe house to who? I don't know yet, sir. Mitchell, get back to DC immediately. I'm activating the emergency response team. We need to relocate the Morettis and figure out what the hell just happened. I caught the first flight out of Seattle. By the time I landed at Reagan National, it was 10 a.m. and my phone had 17 new messages from my mother. All variations of, "Why are you being so dramatic?" and "You're ruining Rachel's wedding." I ignored them all and drove straight to my office at the U.S. Marshals Service headquarters in Arlington. Deputy Chief Crawford was waiting in the secure conference room with 3 other senior marshals and our legal counsel. Mitchell. Crawford gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell us everything. I explained the power of attorney, my parents' access to it, the sale of the house without my knowledge or consent. As I spoke, I watched their expressions shift from concerned to furious. Let me make sure I understand, legal counsel Patricia Williams said slowly. Your parents sold a property that's been registered as a federal safe house for the past 18 months. A property currently housing a protected witness and her family in the Castellano organized crime case. A property with an active protection detail. And they did this without notifying anyone. Yes, ma'am. Who bought the house? I don't know yet. My mother mentioned $850,000 cash, which is significantly below market value for that property. Crawford's jaw tightened. An $850,000 cash sale for a house worth at least $2.8 million. That's either incompetence or something worse. Williams pulled up something on her laptop. I'm looking at the property records now. The sale went through a company called Riverside Holdings LLC. Does that mean anything to you? No, ma'am. She typed rapidly. Riverside Holdings is a shell company. Registered in Delaware. Owners. Concealed through multiple layers. Mitchell, this wasn't a normal real estate transaction. The room went cold. You're saying someone targeted that specific property, I said quietly. I'm saying someone paid cash below market value for a house that happens to be sheltering a witness against the Castellano crime family. That's not a coincidence. Crawford stood abruptly. We need to move the Morettis immediately. Mitchell, you're coming with me. Williams, start the investigation into Riverside Holdings. I want to know who owns it and how they knew about that house. We arrived at the Alexandria house with a full tactical team. The protection detail, Marshals Rodriguez and Chin, met us at the door, both looking confused. Sir, what's going on? Rodriguez asked. We weren't notified of any schedule changes. The house was sold, Crawford said flatly. Without authorization. We're evacuating the witnesses now. Rodriguez's hand moved to his weapon. Sold? How? Family issues, I said quietly. Is Mrs. Moretti inside? With both kids. They're having lunch. We entered quickly. Angela Moretti looked up from the kitchen table where she sat with her 8-year-old daughter and 6-year-old son. Her face went pale when she saw the number of marshals. What happened? Did they find us? No, ma'am, Crawford said. But we're moving you as a precaution. You have 10 minutes to pack essentials. Marshal Rodriguez will help you. Angela stood shakily. But you said we'd be safe here. You said. I know what we said, Mrs. Moretti. And I apologize. There's been a complication with the property. We're taking you somewhere more secure. As Rodriguez helped Angela gather their belongings, Crawford turned to me. Your parents. Where are they now? Family reunion. My uncle's farm in Pennsylvania. They're expecting me there tomorrow. Change of plans. We're going today. Bring a recorder. We need to document everything they say. We drove to Pennsylvania in a convoy of 3 unmarked vehicles. Crawford, myself, Marshall Williams from our legal team, and 4 tactical support agents. My uncle's farm sat on 50 acres of rolling hills outside Harrisburg. By the time we arrived, it was late afternoon and the reunion was in full swing. Cars lined the long driveway. Children played in the yard. The smell of barbecue drifted from the back patio. My mother stood near the grill holding court with my aunts, laughing at something. She spotted me and waved enthusiastically. Then she saw the people with me, all in suits, all wearing badges, and her smile faltered. "Sarah? What's going on?" I walked across the lawn with Crawford beside me. My father emerged from the house, beer in hand. My sister Rachel appeared from around the corner, her fiancé trailing behind her. "Mom, Dad," I said carefully. "We need to talk about the house." "Oh, for heaven's sake," my mother said. "Are you still upset about that?" "Sir, we did you a favor." "That house was a federal safe house," I interrupted. "That house was being used by the U.S. Marshal Service to protect a witness and her children in an active organized crime investigation." The laughter died. My mother's face went white. "What?" "The house in Alexandria. The one you sold without my permission. It wasn't just my house. It was registered as federal property being used for witness protection." My father set down his beer slowly. "That's impossible. You said you worked in office administration." "You said." "I'm a deputy U.S. Marshal," I said. "I have been for 4 years. That house was purchased specifically because of its location and security features. It's been sheltering a protected witness for 18 months. Crawford stepped forward, holding up his badge. "Deputy Chief Marshal James Crawford. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, you've sold federal property without authorization. More critically, you've potentially compromised an active witness protection case." My mother grabbed my father's arm. "We didn't know. Sarah, you never told us." "I couldn't tell you. Operational security means I don't discuss active cases or safe house locations with anyone outside the service. But you should have asked me before selling my property. We had power of attorney. That power of attorney was for emergencies during my military deployment 6 years ago. It was never meant to give you authority to sell my house." Rachel pushed forward. "Sarah, Mom and Dad were just trying to help. They got me $400,000 for my wedding. Surely you can't be upset about." "Your wedding money came from an illegal sale of federal property," I said flatly. "That money is going to be seized as proceeds from a crime." "Crime?" My father's voice went loud. "Now wait just a minute. We didn't commit any crime. We sold your house that you never used. You're always traveling, always busy with work, never around for family. What were we supposed to think?" "You were supposed to think that selling someone else's property without their explicit permission is illegal. Federal property makes it worse." Marshall Williams stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I'm with the Legal Counsel's Office for the U.S. Marshals Service. The house you sold was legally owned by your daughter but registered as federal property for witness protection purposes. The sale of that property without authorization violates 18 U.S.C. Section 1512, tampering with a witness. Additionally, because the sale was conducted using fraudulent authority." "We weren't being fraudulent," my mother cried. "We had the power of attorney. That you knew was outdated and no longer applicable," Williams continued. "And the fact that you sold it significantly below market value to a shell company raises additional questions." "Shell company?" My father frowned. "We sold it to a nice couple through a real estate agent. They paid cash. $850,000. The buyers used a shell company called Riverside Holdings," I said. "Do you know who they actually were?" "Some investors. The agent said they wanted it as a rental property." "An $850,000 cash purchase for a house worth $2.8 million didn't seem suspicious to you?" My mother's voice went shrill. "We're not real estate experts. The agent said it was a fair price for a quick cash sale." Crawford's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "Mitchell, I need to speak with you. Privately." We stepped away from my family. Crawford turned his phone screen toward me. It showed a photo of 2 men. One I didn't recognize, one I definitely did. Vincent Castellano Jr., the son of the mob boss whose Operation Angela Moretti was testifying against. "Riverside Holdings," Crawford said quietly. Shell company owned by the Castellano family. They bought your house. They knew it was a safe house. My blood went cold. How? We're still investigating. But they paid cash below market value, probably to make it attractive for a quick sale. Your parents' greed made them an easy target. I turned back to my family. They stood in a cluster now. Mom, Dad, Rachel, her fiancé, my uncle, 3 aunts, 2 cousins. All watching with varying expressions of confusion and fear. Who approached you about selling the house? I asked. What? My mother blinked. The real estate agent. Linda something. She said she had buyers ready. You didn't list the house. How did she know you had access to it? She called. Said she'd heard we had property in Alexandria we might want to sell. How did she hear that? My mother and father exchanged glances. I might have mentioned it at the country club. I was talking about Rachel's wedding expenses, and someone suggested we had assets we could liquidate. I mentioned you had that house you never used. Crawford closed his eyes briefly. Mrs. Mitchell, you discussed your daughter's property, federal property, at a country club. In front of how many people? I don't know. It was just conversation. Just friends. Those friends told someone. That someone told the Castellanos. And the Castellanos sent a fake agent to convince you to sell them the safe house. My father's face had gone gray. You're saying we helped the mob? Unknowingly, Williams said. But yes. You sold them direct access to a protected witness. Rachel grabbed my arm. Sarah, we didn't know. You have to believe us. We would never. You would never ask before making major decisions about my property, I said, pulling away. You would never respect that I might have reasons for privacy. You would never consider that my work might be more important than you assumed. That's not fair. Isn't it? You took my wedding money, didn't you? $400,000 from the sale. For what? Bigger venue? A fancier dress? Rachel's face flushed. Mom and Dad offered. They said you owed us. You're never around, never involved in family stuff. They said this was your contribution. My contribution was buying a house that happened to save 3 lives. Angela Moretti and her 2 children are alive because they were in that safe house instead of their apartment when the Castellanos sent men to kill them. That was my contribution to something that actually mattered. The silence stretched across the lawn. In the distance, children still played, unaware of what was unfolding. Crawford's phone buzzed again. He answered, spoke briefly, then ended the call. Morettis are secure in a new location. The house in Alexandria is being swept for surveillance devices. And we have a warrant. He nodded to the tactical agents. 2 of them approached my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, we have a warrant to seize all proceeds from the sale of the Alexandria property. That includes bank accounts, cash, and any assets purchased with those funds. My mother stumbled backward. Seize? You can't, that's our money. It's proceeds from the illegal sale of federal property, Williams said. Additionally, you're both being charged with 18 U.S.C. Section 1512, witness tampering, and 18 U.S.C. Section 641, theft of government property. You'll need to come with us for formal processing. Sarah. My father turned to me, his face desperate. Sarah, stop this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them we didn't mean any harm. I looked at him for a long moment. Dad, you sold a safe house to the mob. Whether you meant harm or not, you endangered 3 lives. I can't stop this. I wouldn't stop this if I could. We're your parents. And Angela Moretti is a mother with 2 children who watched her husband murdered by the Castellanos. Your actions almost got her killed too. So no, I'm not stopping this. My parents were taken into custody that evening. Rachel's bank accounts were frozen. The $400,000 wedding fund seized as evidence. Her fiancé left 2 days later, claiming he needed time to think. The investigation into Riverside Holdings led to the arrest of 3 Castellano associates and exposed a network of corrupt real estate agents being used to track federal properties. The mob had been systematically trying to identify safe houses across the eastern seaboard. My parents' carelessness had given them exactly what they wanted. Angela Moretti and her children were relocated to a secure facility out of state. She testified successfully against Vincent Castellano Sr. He's now serving life in federal prison. His son Vincent Jr. got 20 years for witness tampering and related charges. My parents faced trial 6 months later. They were convicted of witness tampering and theft of government property. Dad got 4 years federal prison. Mom got 3 years plus 2 years supervised release. The judge was clear. Ignorance wasn't an excuse when their actions nearly cost 3 lives. Rachel lost everything: her wedding fund, her venue deposit, her fiancé, her reputation. Last I heard, she'd moved to Oregon to live with our aunt. I visited my parents once before they went to prison. They sat across from me in the federal holding facility, both wearing orange jumpsuits, both looking a decade older than they had at the reunion. "Sarah," my mother whispered. "Please. Can't you do something? Talk to someone? Your father's health." "Mom, I'm a deputy marshal. I can't interfere with a federal prosecution. You know that. But we're family. Family respects boundaries. Family asks permission. Family doesn't sell each other's houses to mobsters." My father's hands shook on the table. "We didn't know they were mobsters. We didn't know it was a safe house. We didn't know any of it because you never told us what you really do. I couldn't tell you. And clearly I was right not to trust you with sensitive information. Look what you did with basic property ownership." "So this is our punishment?" my mother asked. "Prison? Because we tried to help our daughter with her wedding? You tried to help yourself to money that wasn't yours. Angela Moretti is alive because we evacuated her in time. If the Castellanos had gotten to her first, if she and her children had been killed, you'd be facing murder charges. 4 years in prison is getting off light." My father's face crumpled. "When you get out, will you? Will I what? Forgive you? Welcome you back to family dinners? Pretend this never happened? We're your parents, Sarah. You were my parents. Now you're federal inmates who compromised a witness protection case because you were too selfish and too careless to ask a simple question before selling my house." I stood up. "I hope you use your time in prison to think about consequences. Real consequences, not just what happens to you, but what could have happened to 3 innocent people because of your actions." 2 years later, I received a letter from my mother. She'd been transferred to a minimum security facility in West Virginia. The letter was 8 pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. She missed me. She wanted to make things right. She'd learned her lesson. I read it once, then filed it with the case documents. Deputy Chief Crawford found me in my office later that day. "Heard your mother reached out. She wants reconciliation. You going to give it to her?" I thought about Angela Moretti, who'd sent me a Christmas card last year with a photo of her kids. They were smiling. They were alive. They were safe because I'd moved fast enough to get them out of that house. "No," I said. "I'm not. Family's important, Mitchell. So is doing your job right. So is protecting people who can't protect themselves. So is maintaining boundaries with people who've proven they can't be trusted." Crawford nodded slowly. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, you handled this situation with more professionalism than I would have managed. It wasn't personal, sir. Wasn't it?" I met his gaze. "It was absolutely personal. But that doesn't change the fact that they broke federal law and endangered federal witnesses. Personal feelings don't override duty." "No," he agreed. "They don't. My parents were released from federal prison 18 months ago. Mom served her full sentence. Dad got out 2 months early for good behavior. They moved to Florida, away from the judgmental whispers of their Pennsylvania community. They've written to me periodically. Cards on my birthday. Emails on holidays. Each one asks for a chance to talk, to explain, to rebuild. I haven't responded to any of them. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday enough time will pass that I can separate who they were from what they did. Maybe someday I'll be able to sit across from them without seeing Angela Moretti's terrified face when we evacuated the safe house. But not today. Today I have a job to do. Witnesses to protect. Cases to build. People who depend on the U.S. Marshals Service to keep them safe from the criminals who want them dead. And I can't do that job if I'm wasting energy on family members who valued $850,000 more than they valued respecting my boundaries, my property, or the lives of 3 people they'd never met. So I keep working. I keep protecting witnesses. I keep maintaining the professional standards that my parents' actions nearly destroyed. And if that makes me cold, if that makes me unforgiving, if that makes me a bad daughter, I can live with that. Angela Moretti's children are alive. That matters more than my parents' feelings. It always will.